Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game preview. Everton taking on Aston Villa away from home tomorrow afternoon at 12:30 p.m. Our first away game of the season. Frank Lampard taking on Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa side. An Aston Villa side that, just like Everton, lost their opening game of the season. They lost 2-0 to Bournemouth. It was away from home, of course. This is their first home game of the season. And yeah, it will be a difficult game for Everton and for Frank Lampard. There seems to be this sort of narrative at the moment around the media as to between Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard as to who will be the first that will get the sack, which I think is a little bit mad that these conversations are being had so early on into a Premier League season. For example, why isn't Erik ten Hag in that conversation? If we're basing it off results from the opening weekend, then Erik ten Hag should be in that conversation. Surely Ralph Hasenhüttl's in that conversation, but no, it seems to just be focused on Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard. I don't know whether that's just because they're English midfielders or ex-English midfielders who have gone into management. I don't really know, but this is a game that I think Everton should be targeting for a win. I just don't believe the hype of Aston Villa as much as other people do. Don't get me wrong. I think they're a really, really good team. They've got some really strong players. Obviously, they've got the likes of Leon Bailey in there. Philippe Coutinho, of course, who's recently signed on a permanent deal. Boubacar Kamara, who I think is a wonderful signing. He was the type of player that Everton should have been targeting. Obviously, we are now targeting with Onana and potentially Mo Kamara as well. But Boubacar Kamara is a fantastic signing. Leon Bailey, of course, who joined them last season, scored against Everton last season. Jacob Ramsey, who's a fantastic young defender. Midfielder. We all know. Obviously, Luca Dean's gone there. Ollie Watkins. So they've got a strong team, Aston Villa, and I think that defeat to Bournemouth probably didn't quite, they probably didn't quite perform as what they would have expected. They did have more shots on goal in that game, 15 to Bournemouth 7. However, they had less on target than Bournemouth. They also had significantly more possession as well, 66%. But ultimately, the only stat that matters was obviously the fact that Bournemouth won the game and won it, quite comfortably in the end from what I watched. And as I said, this should be a game that Everton are targeting going out and winning. And it's, obviously it's difficult because our away record last season was so bad. And I think if we all remember rightly, we won our opening away game of last season against Brighton away and we looked absolutely fantastic. And at that point, we drew against Leeds and then we beat Brighton away in the following one. And Brighton at that point hadn't lost the game in the Premier League, and we turned up and we sort of beat them comfortably. And then from that point on until Leicester away, 5 or 6 games before the end of the season, we were absolutely atrocious away from home. And there is a sort of, I suppose, a brewing worry in my stomach that we simply can't be that bad away from home again this season. Ultimately a team that only wins 2 away games in an entire Premier League season typically should be in the sort of, that fighting for relegation, those positions, because that's simply not good enough. I mean, you compare it to the season before. I think we won 9 away games the season before under Carlo Ancelotti, and okay, our home record wasn't particularly great, but we went from winning 9 away games to only winning 2 and only winning 1 until whatever it was, April, May. So we really need to fix that this season, and that's something that I think Frank Lampard will have been targeting over the summer, is how to get over that line away from home, because we know how we can do it at Goodison Park. When the fans turn up in their tens of thousands and meet the coach outside the ground before the game, and with the blue flare and the singing and the smoke and all of that sort of stuff, it very clearly has an effect on the players. It very clearly has a positive effect on the on the players and how they perform. And obviously, it's much easier to create an atmosphere when there's 40,000 Evertonians as opposed to 4,000 or 5,000 that go to away games. Although I think our away support is absolutely unbelievable. I'll be there at Villa Park tomorrow myself, and I can assure you that there will be a lot of noise made. But Frank Lampard really does have to figure out how we avoid what was an absolutely disgraceful away record last season, how we avoid replicating that this season, and actually turn up in games like this against sides that I feel like we should be beaten and win. And don't get me wrong, as I said, Villa are a good side, and there'll be a lot of fans that are watching this thinking, Villa, how are you trying to say that Everton should be beating Aston Villa? But I just look at Aston Villa at the moment. I look at them towards the back end of last season. I watched them last week, or I seen the highlights of last week, and I just think they're a team that are very much there for the taking. Now, okay, it's difficult because Everton at this point still haven't got a striker, and but given the fact that we'd have had to have had a player registered by 12 o'clock today, we won't have a new striker in before the game tomorrow. So the assumption is that it will be Solomon Rondon starting up front. And listen, that might be a blessing. I'm not going to sit here and have a go at Solomon Rondon and rip into him, because ultimately at the end of the day, he hasn't kicked the ball this season, and he might turn up tomorrow and make an absolute nuisance of himself, run into people, do exactly what he should be doing, and giving the defenders a really, really difficult afternoon. And then obviously allowing probably the players around them to be the creators, or to be a little bit more aggressive attacking wise, and Solomon maybe just being the sort of bulldozer that runs through brick walls. But we are still going in incredibly light up top, and I think that's very, very clear to see. The manager did confirm today in his pre-game press conference that Amadou Onana and Coady will be available for this game. He didn't give any hints as to whether or not they'd start, but he did say they both will be available in what was a very short and sort of a strange press conference, I suppose. It only lasted about 5 or 6 minutes from what I gauged, and there wasn't an awful lot said. There was a question about Steven Gerrard and management of him and Steven Gerrard, and whether they spoke about it as players, and there were a couple of questions about the team and last week's performance against Chelsea, but there wasn't an awful lot in the press conference to take from it. We didn't get any sort of injury news other than news about Yerry Mina being out. We didn't really get any news regarding the team, so it was difficult to sort of gauge from Frank Lampard's press conference how he feels going into this game. But one thing we do know is it will be difficult. We, notoriously at Villa Park, we don't have the greatest of records in recent years. One thing I do want to say before we move on, by the way, if it sounds like I'm in an airport, if it sounds like I'm literally at Terminal 2 of Manchester Airport, it's because I've got a fan next to me blaring cold air in my face, and I apologise, but you're just going to have to put up with the noise of what sounds like a Boeing 747 sat next to me computer, because if it wasn't me that was going to blow up due to the heat, it's about 40-odd thousand degrees outside, then my computer would have certainly blown up during the heat. So unfortunately, it was either me sitting here and collapsing, or my computer blowing up, or a little bit of extra background noise for a fan. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to put up with it. But no, this will be a difficult game. I think it'll be difficult for us to look at any away game this season against anybody, whether it be one of the newly promoted teams, whether it be one of the top 6 teams, or whether it be a team like Aston Villa. I think it'll be really, really difficult for us as Evertonians to look at any away game this season and say, right, this will be comfortable, because we're not comfortable away from home, no matter who we play, where we play, when we play. We're not comfortable away from home, and that is something that needs to change. And that's been a problem at the football club for years, by the way. This isn't a Frank Lampard specific problem, barring Carlo Ancelotti's season, which a little part of my brain still thinks never happened, and we all just had some sort of side effect that come with COVID that made us all believe that James Rodriguez played for Everton, and we were boss away from home, and we were dead good at home for the first few months of the season, and we were top of the league for ages. A big part of me still thinks that didn't really happen. But barring that season, I think you're probably looking back to the David Moyes times, maybe Roberto Martinez's first season, or at least in the last few months of Roberto Martinez's first season, where we actually had a decent away record. Ever since then, we haven't really been great away from home. We've been much better than what we were last season, but we're not typically a team that goes away and beat sides that we should be beating. And certainly, we play teams at Goodison and wipe the floor with them, or have done in the past, and then we go away from home against them, and it's just not the same. And that is something that needs to change, and it will be interesting to see how Everton perform tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see how ultimately we line up and the tactics that the manager decides to go for. Will he go with the same tactics as the game last week against Chelsea, which I actually felt were right, to be honest with you, barring not starting Dele? I thought Dele should have started as the striker. I actually think everything else was fairly right. Or will we see something a little bit different? Will we see a little bit of a change because we are away from home? One thing I do think is that if we lose this game tomorrow, football is a very unforgiving sport, and I don't think there'll be many Evertonians that will put too much pressure on Frank Lampard if we are to lose. But it almost makes that, that third game of the season against Nottingham Forest, is it, I believe, really, really sort of a must win, if you like. Obviously next Saturday we play Fleetwood after that, and then Brentford away. But if we are to lose tomorrow, then that Nottingham Forest game almost becomes a game where you're looking at thinking, well, if we lose this one, we've lost the opening 3 of the season. That's not a very good start. And obviously with the media, and as I said, the media are already starting to create this strange narrative of Frank Lampard being the worst manager in the league or being the first to get sacked. It's absolutely strange, if I'm being honest with you. So it would be nice to go out there tomorrow, put last week behind us, understand last week was what it was, a game against a really, really good team in very difficult circumstances, losing, our 2 best defenders, or certainly 2 of our best defenders, and not having a striker in there either to create for, put it behind us, go out tomorrow, and ultimately beat a side that are there for the taking. They're a good team, they've got some good players, and they've got some threatening players. As I said, Jacob Ramsey is one that I think catches people's eyes. Luca Dean, we all know how creative Luca Dean is. Ollie Watkins, although there seems to be a little bit of a falling out there, he can still score goals at any point. Leon Bailey can score goals. Philippe Coutinho is still technically a wonderful footballer, even if he hasn't got that, quite the legs that he had, when he was at Liverpool. He still technically is a very good footballer. So, this is everything that Everton have got to be aware of. We've got to be solid. We've got to be compact. This is where I think having Conor Coady in there will be beneficial, and I do think Conor Coady will start tomorrow. I'm not too sure Amadou Onana will start. I think we'll probably more likely see him on the bench and maybe coming off the bench, but I do think we'll see Conor Coady start, because ultimately, he needs to, really, doesn't he? I mean, again, no Yerry Mina, no Ben Godfrey. Obviously Mason Holgate's there, Michael Keane's there, but I think it would be quite silly for Frank to not start Conor Coady tomorrow. I think he's ready. He's had a pre-season with Wolves. Obviously he was on the bench last week, so he won't be fatigued from last week. And yeah, as I said, it's an exciting game, because I think if we can go out there and win this one, then not only do we get that first win on the board and we can sort of, be excited about that, but we can also look and think, right, okay, we've managed to get a win away from home early on in the season, which is good, and, hopefully it'll help players get over whatever it is that seems to stop them from being able to go away from home and perform like they do at Goodison. But in the same sense, and in the same conversation, Steven Gerrard will be looking at this one thinking, if I go the opening 2 games of the season without a win, losing both, the media are going to be on my arse, and there's going to be all sorts of pressure there. So, it certainly will be an interesting game. As I said, and I'll say this with chest, because I think the result tomorrow is completely irrelevant to this point. I don't believe the hype that I'm reading in the media. It's interesting, because 1 minute you'll read an article saying, listing Steven Gerrard as one of the favourites to be sacked first, and the next minute you'll read an article about Aston Villa being the favourite to be the team that are the best of the rest, and might even break into the top 6. Now, as I said, I just don't believe that. Even if they do beat Everton tomorrow, I simply don't believe that they're anywhere near that level. But I think this will be interesting. I think an early goal could change the game, and I know that might sound a little bit Michael Owenish, but I think if Everton can get an early goal, get out there, and then defend, in numbers, compact, strong. I think I think Aston Villa could maybe struggle a little bit, but then where does that goal come from? Will that goal come from Solomon Rondon? Is anybody confident of that? Will that goal come from Anthony Gordon, Damari Gray? I mean, after last week, I'm not very confident of that either. Dwight McNeil, maybe, but it's difficult because we still haven't got a striker, and I know some people will be incredibly frustrated that we still haven't got a striker. It seems like we're moving forward in that pursuit. There's been a couple of players that have been linked that seem like the club are making some forward steps in trying to bring them into the club. Obviously before that game against Nottingham Forest, but what we do know is that there'll be nobody starting up front tomorrow that we don't already know of. And that means it'll likely be Rondon. If it's Dele, I'll be very, very surprised, considering he didn't start last week when Rondon wasn't available. But it'll be tough. as I said, Aston Villa lost their opening game of the season as well, so their incentive to win is much higher. It's their opening game of the season in front of their fans, so I'm sure the atmosphere will be, pretty exciting. I'm sure the atmosphere in the away end will be booming as well. I can't wait to get down there. I'm not looking forward to sitting on a coach for 3 hours in 87, 12-degree heat for in order to get there, but I think this coach is leaving at something like 7:30 in the morning, so hopefully it'll be early enough to just get off it before the actual heat really starts to hit. Coming home will be a different story, of course. But yeah, it'll be a really, really interesting game, as I said. An exciting one. Hopefully one that Everton can turn up and get something out of it. If we're not going to win, get something out of it. Don't lose it. And I think if we come away with a draw, I think most people, I'm not going to say we'll be satisfied, because there'll be a lot of Blues that'll sit there and say I'm never satisfied unless we win, and that's fair enough. But I think there'll be a lot of Blues that'll look at a draw and think, do you know what, a point away from home, first away game of the season, a couple of the new lads getting in there and getting a go out, in their first week. You take that, you move on, and then you go and beat Nottingham Forest on Saturday. But a win will be brilliant, and I do think Frank Lampard will be targeting a win. I don't think he'll be looking at this game thinking, right, I'll take a draw and we'll move on. I think he'll be looking at it thinking, we can beat these because we can. Bournemouth ultimately have only just come up, and I know they were at home, and I know they get that bounce because it's their first Premier League game back in the division. But they ultimately managed to find a way to beat this Aston Villa team and to nullify them, and Everton should be able to do the same. Let's get into the live comments then, to have a little look at what everybody's saying. We will get into our predicted starting 11s in just a minute. Don't you worry. Semi says, greeting fellow Blues. Hello, Cam. What's happening? Philip says, howdy, Blues. What's happening, Philip? Starwall says, we have a good chance of winning this IMO. I agree. Hello, Philip says, Semi, yes. Bonjour, charmed, says Philip. Lost 6 on the bounce to them, says Semi. Yeah, we haven't got a great record there. We simply haven't got a great record there, or at least didn't win. Star Wars says things can change, and Chelsea had not won against us in Goodison for ages, but did last week. Yeah, that's very true. Ultimately, them records are there to be broken. I don't take much out the fact that we have lost. We haven't got a particularly great record there, because that can always change. I just think a defeat tomorrow will be really, really disappointing. It's not the end of the world, of course. It's not, because we're only the second game into the season. And listen, Arsenal lost their opening 3 games of last season and then went on to finish just outside the Champions League places. And I'm not saying Everton will do that, but I'm just saying this early on, a couple of losses on the bounce isn't the end of the world. But it'd be nice to get that first win under our belt so we can move forward. Semi says, think the Bournemouth loss makes them more likely to work hard and respond to get a better result. Yeah, it does, but that should be the same for us with the defeat to Chelsea. Hi Cam, hope we win Saturday, says Tuesday. Love to see a win, of course, says Semi. Nelvin says, what do you think about Rondon's presence in the starting 11? His older players far better than DCL. Even if he doesn't score, he may open way for someone else to have a shot on goal. If you're asking me, would I rather Rondon or DCL in the starting 11 if both were fit, then it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin all day long. But Rondon, I'm sure he'll get tomorrow. Whether or not he will be in the starting 11 against Nottingham Forest, I would like to hope not, because I would like to hope we'd have a striker in there that is more capable of doing the job we need them to do than Solomon Rondon. But I'm fairly certain he'll start tomorrow, so that's his incentive to go out and to sort of make an impression on the manager, I suppose. In Rondon we trust, says Semi. Thomas says the players need to turn up and play on the front foot. Rondon to start for me. Well, he will, won't he? And Semi says Cam equals aeroplane. Yeah, I am very much feeling like I'm on an aeroplane, if I'm being honest with you. For context, it is 87, 12 degrees outside in Liverpool, and therefore meaning it is 87, 13 degrees in my bedroom, which is just not acceptable, really. Anyway, let's get into our predicted starting 11 then for this one. I'm going to go with the same formation. I'm going to go with Jordan Pickford in goal. Little bit ropey last week. Made a couple of sort of strange decisions. I wouldn't say he made any massive real errors or any errors that led to sort of big opportunities. But he made a couple of sort of, a couple of decisions that you sort of looked at and thought, what's that about? That's not typical of Jordan Pickford to make those decisions. So, hopefully he's got those out of his system, and hopefully Jordan can turn up tomorrow and put the type of performances in that he was putting in towards the back end of last season. Because if he can, then obviously we've got much more chance of winning the game. Back five, I'm going for Vitaly Mykolenko at left wing back. Again, thought he played really well, to be honest with you, last Saturday. Moved into centre-back, of course, towards the end of the game when Ruben Vinagre come on. But I thought he played really, really well. Worked hard, battled, was getting forward. I think we'll have a little bit more space and a little bit more freedom tomorrow because he's playing against a team with much less fighting power than what Chelsea had. But yeah, he's been fairly faultless, hasn't he? Vitaly Mykolenko, since he's joined the football club, so it wouldn't be very, I think it'd be a little bit harsh to take him out. Right wing back, Nathan Patterson, again, very similarly, thought he done really, really well last week, considering he was playing against one of the top teams in Europe, one of the top teams in the Premier League, one of the top attacking forces in the Premier League. I think he managed himself really, really well. His positioning was good, his movement was good, he was getting forward when he needed to, his defensive actions were good as well. I thought he was really solid. Worked hard, battled, and done everything that he needed to do. And then the back three, I'm going for James Tarkowski. I'm going for Conor Coady to make his Everton debut. And I am going for Mason Holgate. Obviously, the manager said today that both Coady and Onana will be available for selection. And I do think Conor Coady will start, partly because we haven't really got a choice. The only other option would be to have Mason Holgate and Michael Keane in there with James Tarkowski. And I think Mason Holgate and Michael Keane have proven plenty of times that in a back three, the pair of them simply can't play together in a back three. And the way I also see it is you've brought Conor Coady in to be a leader. You've brought Conor Coady in because he can play in that back three. You've brought Conor Coady in because he knows what he's doing. He knows his job. He'll work hard. He'll run round. He'll battle. We've seen a couple of clips of him. In training. Earlier on today, and he looks really, really solid. He looks ready. He said in his interview the other day he'll be ready for the game. So yeah, Conor Coady fits straight in there for me. Tarkowski, obviously, fits straight in there as well. I don't think there's any debate in that whatsoever. And then the third one is Mason Holgate. Now, obviously, you've got a decision there. The manager's got a decision there to make between Michael Keane and Mason Holgate. Personally, I just think Mason's more likely to be able to learn to play that role than Michael Keane is. Now, Mason come on last week for Ben Godfrey in the 12th minute and played the entirety of the rest of the game, and I thought he was brilliant. Thought he was really, really solid. He worked hard. He battled. He defended everything he needed to. He got rid of about 4 or 5, 6 corners consecutively without any real issue. He didn't panic. He didn't worry. There was no sort of mad action. There was no mad attempts to pass the ball. It was just very, very simple. And I think for that, he deserves to start again tomorrow. As I said, you'll have Conor Coady in there, you'll have James Tarkowski in there next to him, so I'm sure his performance will be, well, it should be even more solid than it was last week. Obviously, this is Mason Holgate we're talking about, but he would be my pick for the other defender, alongside, obviously, the two new lads. Into the midfield, then, I'm going with the same midfield. I'm going for Coady and Iwobi. Now, some people will be disappointed with that, and again, this is just a prediction on what I think Frank Lampard will go with. I can't see Frank Lampard starting Amadou Onana in this game, considering he's not long signed for the football club. He'll have only had 1, maybe 2 sessions at max. Now, I know Conor Coady will have only had a similar amount, but Conor Coady's played in the Premier League, knows that role, knows what he's doing. Has played in these games before. It's not nothing new to Conor Coady, this, whereas it is very new to Amadou Onana, and I don't think the manager will risk putting him straight in there. I think we'll see him off the bench after 50, maybe 60 minutes, depending on how the game's going. But I do think he'll start with the same midfield too. And to be fair, barring the penalty decision, which was baffling, I actually thought Abdoulaye Doucouré played fairly well last week. Thought he done what he needed to do. He got about the pitch. I thought his passing was okay. His battling was okay. His determination was okay. The penalty was silly. It was really, really silly. But other than that, I thought he was okay, and Alex Iwobi was our man of the match last week. Alex Iwobi was absolutely our man of the match, so there's no doubt in my mind that Alex Iwobi will start this game, as he absolutely should. Sam says you going tomorrow, Cam. I am. I'll be on a coach at 7:30 in the morning to get down to Birmingham Why I'm on there at 7:30, I don't know. But I am going the game. And then the front three, this was a little bit difficult because last week's front three were invisible. Let's be honest with you, they were absolutely invisible. And again, I'm not, it's difficult because we've got no out-and-out striker in there, or we had no out-and-out striker in there, so it's difficult for the wingers to be able to do what they're usually doing. But I'm going Rondon up front, because as I said, he is the only sort of natural striker we've got there at the moment. He is the backup to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, whether we like it or not. He's the backup to Dominic Calvert-Lewin as of now. And listen, it's an opportunity for Rondon to get in there, and I think Rondon will know this is the game where if I'm going to do it, this is the game where I've got to do it, because they're already after. And don't get me wrong, I think even if Rondon goes out and scores an hat-trick tomorrow, we obviously still should sign a striker. But his incentive is to perform tomorrow, because if he doesn't, the likelihood is we'll have a striker in before Forest and he'll just become second, third choice again. So I think Rondon will start. Wide, I'm going to go for Anthony Gordon. Wasn't great last week. It has to be said, wasn't great in terms of his output, in terms of his creativity, in terms of his final ball, but his effort and his desire was fantastic. And I think Frank Lampard is obviously a massive, massive fan of Anthony Gordon. And then I'm going to go with Dwight McNeil. I just don't think Damari Gray has shown enough recently to deserve starting another game of football. Don't get me wrong, Dwight McNeil wasn't amazing last week either. I do think he was the best of the three. Having said that, I do think he was the best of the three. I think he worked the hardest, but Anthony Gordon worked hard as well. But I just think his output was better, his passing, his hold-up play. I just think he was the better of the forward players last week, and I think it's to be an opportunity for him to show himself against the team, obviously with still a lot of quality, but not as much as Chelsea have got, and hopefully kickstart his Everton career with a bang tomorrow. And then I'm going to have Damari Gray potentially coming off the bench a little bit later on. I just don't think he's doing enough. I just simply don't think he's doing enough. And you bring in Dwight McNeil, obviously, for him to play and be around the team. And yeah, I'd have him in there. So there you go. That is my predicted starting 11. Let us know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. We'll get involved with as many of them as we can. If you're watching live, get your comments in before we do finish. Semi says, agree with you, Cam, about Gray. Not doing enough. Star Wars says, if we win 1-0 or 2-1, seems more realistic. Listen, if we win 1-0 and it comes off somebody's arse in the last minute, I'm happy, mate. I'm happy. Eugene's going for 4-1. If Everton score 4 goals, mate, then the heat stroke truly has hit us, because there's not a chance Everton scoring 4 goals. Zark going to get himself one very soon, says Semi about goals. Kevin Morales was a brilliant player, says Tuesday. He was. Wonder what he's doing at the moment. John says a massive performance needed, not unless show with a different outfit. Yeah. And Star Wars says scoring off a set piece could mean first goal for either centre back. It could, and Tarkowski was very close last week. By the way, that header was brilliant, and it was a brilliant save by Mendy. So who knows? Anyway, look, we are going to finish it there then. It is absolutely boiling, so I'm going to go and get a shower because I'm dripping. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. If you watched in the live comments, big thank you all for getting involved. If you have enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe. If you're watching the YouTube video, then it'd be amazing if you could do the same. We'll be back tomorrow with the instant match reaction and the player ratings as well, so don't forget to check those out. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be an interesting game, but I'm not going to say I'm confident Everton will win because we're away from home, and I'm never confident we'll win away from home, but I think there's more than a good chance we will win and can win this game. It obviously just depends on the manager and the tactics and the team selection, etc. So there you go. Big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and we'll see you later.